Okay, so let's get right into it. The name Goethe, what comes to mind? For a lot of us, it's probably, some dusty marble bust sitting in a library. A literary genius for sure, but let's be honest, kind of boring, right? Well, today, we're going to take a hammer to that bust.
Yeah, because the guy behind some of the most profound writing in history, he was also this rebellious pop culture icon, a scandalous lover, and get this, a rogue scientist who literally went toe-to-toe with Isaac Newton. The real story here is so much more complicated and, honestly, way more exciting.
So let's just throw out that textbook legend, shall we? We're swapping out the whole prim and proper poet thing for what he really was, a man just full of intense passion and contradictions. And the best place to start? The moment he basically became the world's first pop star.
So, picture this. Goethe is in his early 20s. It's this fiery period in Germany called Sturm und Drang, which literally means storm and stress. And man, did he live up to that name. He didn't just write a book. Nope, he unleashed this cultural phenomenon that made him unbelievably famous and absolutely miserable.
The book was The Sorrows of Young Werther. And I'm not kidding, this thing wasn't just a bestseller, it was a full-on cultural explosion. When it came out in 1774, it just tapped right into this deep well of raw, youthful emotion that polite society had been trying to keep a lid on. And the reaction? It was instant, and it was massive.
You know, what's so wild about this is how modern it all sounds. I mean, they called it the Werther effect, and it was a total, full-blown fandom. You had cosplay, young guys all over Europe started wearing Werther's signature blue coat and yellow vest. You had a huge moral panic because, tragically, there was this wave of copycat suicides. And you're not going to believe this, there was even merch, Ode the Werther perfume. That was a real thing you could buy in the 1700s. Insane.
So you gotta ask, why? Why did this one story hit so hard? Well, you have to remember, this was 18th century Europe. Everything was dominated by neoclassicism, which was all about reason, rules, and a super rigid social order. And Werther, it was the exact opposite. It screamed at young people, saying, hey, all those intense, messy, chaotic feelings you have, they're real, they're valid. It was like a lightning bolt that put personal emotion way above stuffy old etiquette.
But, and this is the crazy part, the guy at the center of this whole hurricane, Goethe himself, he grew to absolutely hate his own creation. I mean, can you imagine? Fans were showing up at his door all the time asking if Werther was a real person. He felt completely trapped by this one character he'd invented. He just wanted everyone to go away. His own fame had become his prison.
And you can really see this internal pressure cooking in his private letters. He wrote to this woman, Charlotte von Stein, who, by the way, was a married noblewoman with 7 kids, and he just confesses this overwhelming, almost self-destructive love for her. I mean, that's the voice of the guy who wrote Werther, right? Just pure feeling, pure intensity.
But then, and you have to hear this, in the very same letter, he just pivots. Suddenly, he's talking about cold, rational, scientific stuff. This whiplash, this incredible contrast, it just shows you the two worlds that were constantly at war inside his head. You had the fiery romantic on one side and the cool, detached scientist on the other, both wrestling for control. And honestly, that conflict almost tore him apart.
So, flash forward. He's 37 years old, and Goethe just hits a wall. Hard. I mean, think about it. He's a big-shot court official in Weimar, he's a European celebrity, and he is completely suffocating. So he escapes. And this wasn't some vacation, okay? This was a pure act of desperation, a last-ditch effort to save himself from a complete and total burnout.
And when I say escape, I mean he literally ran away, snuck out of town in the middle of the night, didn't tell a soul, and called it his leap into death. Can you imagine? When he got to Rome, he went totally incognito, pretending he was just some unknown painter so he could feel anonymous again. And this wasn't a relaxing trip either. The guy climbed an active volcano, Mount Vesuvius, just to collect lava samples, and it was in southern Italy that he had this huge revelation. The people there, they just lived, while everyone he knew back home was just obsessed with surviving.
And that really gets to the heart of what this trip did to him. It was like shock therapy. It completely rewired his brain, his entire view of the world. He came back reborn, not just as a better poet, but as a fundamentally different person.
So armed with this brand new perspective, the reborn Goethe comes back from Italy and he is ready to challenge everything. And who's first on his list? Only Sir Isaac Newton. And after that, the suffocating social prejudices of his own high society.
Okay, so he writes this massive 1,400-page book called Theory of Colors. And here's the thing,
He wasn't trying to say Newton's math was wrong. He was saying it was only half the story. See, for Newton, color was just cold physics. Light particles, wavelengths, that's it. But for Goethe, color was a living, breathing, human experience. I mean, think about it for a second. If you stare at a bright red dot and then look at a white wall, you see a green afterimage, right? That green isn't in the light, it's in your eye, it's in your brain. Goethe was trying to put the human experience back into the science equation.
And this rebellious streak, it didn't stop with science. It spilled right over into his private life. He falls head over heels for Christiane Vuplius, a young working-class woman who made artificial flowers in a factory. I mean, the class difference was just enormous. And Weimar high society, they were absolutely horrified. For nearly 20 years, they basically treated her like she was invisible. But then, Napoleon's soldiers storm their house, and it's Christiane who stands up to them, single-handedly protecting Goethe. And just days later, he marries her, finally, publicly, just sticking it to the very society that had scorned her for so long. What a story.
Okay, so let's recap. We've got the rebellious pop star, the scientific explorer, the scandalous lover. So where does all this lead? Well, it all comes together. It culminates in the one piece of work he spent 60 years of his life writing, Faust. This wasn't just a play, this was his grand, ultimate statement on what it even means to be human. Now, to really get Faust, there's something you should know. Goethe was a Freemason. And listen, forget all the crazy modern conspiracy theories. For him, it wasn't about secrets. It was about this humanistic belief in reason, in brotherhood, and this core idea that humanity can and must always keep striving to be better. And that philosophy, it's the absolute backbone of Faust.
So most of us probably know the basic setup, right? You've got this scholar, Faust, who's learned everything there is to learn, and he's just bored. So he makes a deal with the devil, this character called Mephistopheles. The deal is, he gets to experience everything life has to offer. But the price tag? It's his soul.
But the specifics of the deal are what's really important here. This is the key. The devil doesn't win if Faust does something evil. No. The devil wins at the exact moment Faust becomes so happy, so content with a single moment in time that he says, "Ah, stay a while. You are so fair." The second he stops pushing forward, the second he stops striving, he loses. That's the deal.
And this all leads to the really shocking, truly revolutionary ending of the whole story. After this entire life of striving and, listen, making terrible mistakes, causing unbelievable pain, Faust is not damned. He's saved. And you have to ask why. Because for Goethe, salvation isn't about being perfect. It's about the struggle. It's about the relentless, messy, imperfect, lifelong struggle to just keep moving forward, to always keep striving for something more. So, in his final years, after pouring a lifetime of this striving philosophy into Faust, Goethe's vision just got bigger. He started looking beyond his own life, beyond Germany, to the entire world, and he began to very carefully craft his own legacy.
He started pushing this idea he called Weltliteratur, which just means world literature. Now think about this. At a time when nationalism was on the rise, he was arguing the exact opposite. He said that, just like he had crossed boundaries in his own life, art and literature had to cross borders too. They needed to be a bridge to help us understand each other. I mean, what an incredible idea. He was basically predicting our own globalized world.
And when he finally died, at the ripe old age of 82, his last words were supposedly, "more light." And who knows, right? Maybe he was just asking someone to open the curtains. Or maybe it was one last profound plea for more knowledge, more enlightenment. Either way, it just perfectly captures the spirit of the man who literally never ever stopped searching.
Which brings us to one last really interesting question to leave you with. His own autobiography is titled Poetry and Truth. So what was he doing? Was he just recording the facts of his life, the truth? Or was this master storyteller using the raw material of his own messy, brilliant existence to create his final masterpiece, the poetry? In other words, was the rebellious, complicated, striving man we've just been talking about a real person? Or was he Goethe's greatest and most lasting creation? Something to think about.